We're off and running. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Ducks Unlimited. I am Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
I have even got on my Ducks Unlimited socks.
Oh, I wear them on. I love them. They're one of my favorite pairs.
I still got them on. I'm actually in last night's clothes, so I got in late. So I wore these on the plane. Even had to,
So you were repping us in the air.
all the way from New Providence, whatever, in the Bahamas. Yep. Got a couple compliments on my socks also. I am not a trendsetter guy. I did not realize socks were a big thing right now.
You didn't know socks were?
Yeah, like
You think
everybody
goes around just bare.
No. Everybody's like wearing these big personality socks.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Making a statement with
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a trendsetter because I always have done that.
Well, I
either
guess
this
you're a
time of
trendsetter.
year, I wear short socks and boat shoes.
Right.
Then it's shin scout boots and colorful socks. My DU socks, I got 2 pair of them. I snagged 2 pair of them out of the gift bags last year, and I wear them. I love their socks. Need a different color, though, besides just the old blue there, Mr. Schuessler.
I know we're working on that. The blue, it's time to transition into a new color. We're working on it.
Red, like George Bush Sr., the first crooked Bush.
Okay.
I like.
I saw his plane last night.
Really?
Oh, it's on the the aircraft carrier.
It's on the Midway. Yeah. It's on the Midway.
okay.
Yep.
Yep.
That kind of tells people where we are.
Okay.
You're in San Diego. We're not supposed to tell people that.
We are. Yeah. We're in San Diego for National Convention.
He landed that on the Lexington, which is at Corpus Christi, Texas. And when you walk across them aircraft carriers, just like you did you go on the Ronald Reagan or you were on the old? Which one you were on? It's the other one from World War II, isn't it? The Midway, or what's that?
Actually, we were on the Midway, and we learned last night that it was not a World War II carrier. It was commissioned right after the end of the war.
Which is the one they have there?
Yeah, but it saw action, I'm assuming, in
Vietnam.
Yeah. I mean, you can see all the silhouettes of the planes that shot down, and then we actually had somebody, a former Oregon state chairman for Ducks Unlimited, they was recognized last night, who flew planes off of that deck. That was pretty cool.
That is awesome. When you see those things and you fly, like if you fly out of Corpus Christi on a small plane and you cruise over the top of that thing, you realize them guys had a set of balls on them to land on that. I mean, there's not the air is very small there, and especially in 1930s and 40s. That's just nuts.
Yep, pretty crazy.
My
the greatest generation. The greatest
by far. I talked at church Sunday, and I was talking about that, and I said, could you imagine today having to depend on 17 and 18-year-old kids to storm the beaches of Normandy? They wouldn't get off the frickin' boat. First of all, they wouldn't even make it through boot camp. We would be in so much trouble. We've ruined our youth, but just to rely on them, that generation was mind-boggling, the stuff that they achieved and the no quit they had in them, but they didn't have all the safety nets our kids have today. And we're ruining them. But that's a hell of a generation. That's a cool place down there. What a cool good thing to get to see and watch and do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what are y'all guys doing there? It's the National Convention?
It is. We do it every year, and it moves around. This year, of course, it's in San Diego. We come together and learn. We come together and celebrate. We do chapter awards and state awards, and then celebrate all the fundraising that we do, celebrate all the conservation work that we do, conduct the business of the organization. We'll have our board of directors meeting this afternoon. We're electing a new president at this one, as we do every 2 years. So we have about 1,000 people every year that come. It's the vast majority being volunteers who are paying their own way to get here and spending their own time to be here. And it's a big deal for us every year. And it's a lot of fun to come to. I think this is my 21st or 22nd.
No kidding.
Yep. And I look forward to it every year. It's a lot of fun.
Number 3 for me. Enjoyed every one of them.
Since Dr. Mike, did we introduce who's with us today?
I don't think we did, but I think people know by now.
You think so?
They can read the title.
Okay, they can.
David Schuessler and Mike Brasher.
Mike, I've got a question for you. In the metropolitan area of Knox City, all 1,000 of us populace that live here, we are being inundated now with Mexican tree ducks or fiddler's tree ducks or black-bellied whistling ducks, whatever you call them. You know, I got in trouble the other day for calling them a Mexican tree duck. Well, my whole life, that's what they are. But we have them all over Knox City now, like in my trees around my pool and stuff. Is this,
Yep.
and I see more and more people further and further north. Is this something that's going to be around forever now? Kind of like the white-winged dove has moved into our areas?
I see no reason why it wouldn't be. And so there's 2 species of whistling ducks that we would have here in North America. One is the black-bellied whistling duck. That's the one that you're seeing. The other is the fulvous whistling duck. It's more restricted to the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, a little bit into Texas. There's also some in peninsular Florida. But the black-bellied whistling ducks are the ones that are expanding in range and growing in population size. And there's a number of hypotheses around what is driving that growth. Some think it may be related to their adaptation to some of these urban environments and access to grain bins, grain elevators along some of the rivers and things of that nature. And that might have played a little bit of it, but I think otherwise they're just highly adaptable to some of the places where we live now, and taking advantage of some of the nesting boxes that we put out for wood ducks. They're cavity nesters. People are reporting them in South Dakota and Canada and in your place, and there's a big breeding population of them, 200 or so breeding pairs that are outside of Memphis, and so it's a pretty cool story. It's one of the stories in waterfowl ecology and conservation nowadays that it's some new information and pretty exciting to see.
I get so excited because I love waterfowl. I mean, I'm consumed with it. I have been since I was a little kid. I grew up and loved duck hunting, but I love ducks and geese and watching them. I mean, if I stop and there's a bunch of Canada geese in a park, I look for bands like a lot of waterfowl hunters do.
And we always lost ours in February. We had nothing to look at until September.
And now I get so excited when I see them. Well, Michelle's like, what is going on? Them squealers are outside. I'm like, how many have you seen today? I mean, I'm excited because never had them before.
Jeff's got a population count for Knox City.
Yeah,
You say that about we work with waterfowl and see waterfowl all the time, but I still get excited even when seeing things like a hen mallard and her ducklings, which I did this morning. Walked out of the hotel, wanting to get some coffee down towards the bay, and there she was with her 7 ducklings, probably 4 or 5 days old, and I had to just stop and take some photos and videos. It's just cool. I mean, we're just drawn to these, whether they're we'd much rather see it like out in the wild and prairies and all that kind of stuff, but still, you marvel at them and you fascinate at them.
It's a fraternity we're in. It's a very select group. And I don't care if you have $1 or you've got $1 billion. If you love ducks, you love ducks. But it's exciting to me because we've never had that, and so I'm even thinking about starting to corn the road next to my house. I'm serious because everybody says they love deer feeders and stuff.
Jeff's going to be flying over. Forget it, guys. We've got listen. If you need an accurate count for the Mexican tree duck in Knox City or Texas, just let us know. Jeff's on the case. Do they make a lot of noise at night? Because when I got home last night, there was 2 or 3 birds in some trees in my neighborhood that were just going crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I've never heard like songbirds go crazy at night.
Well, was it a high pitched whistle, squeal?
Yeah.
It was probably them. I don't know personally, but what kind of sounds they make at night. I know I've heard them flying over New Orleans. As they're going to roost, and constant squawking, constant whistling. So I would imagine once they get to the roost sites, they do a little bit of that as well.
Andy, when I lived in Austin, they would roost on top of our house, and yes, they will talk at night if they're woken up, and so that's very likely what you heard last night.
I've only seen them. I've not heard, like I said, I've not heard any of them, but I've seen them in our neighborhood and I've seen them around town, but I've not heard anything. And when we pulled up last night, like it was so loud, and I've never heard a bird sound like that. So I assume that's what it was, just because I've never heard songbirds. You pull up late at night and they normally don't wake up.
Oh, they chatter. They're ones right before dark. They were in my tree next to my neighbor's tree. So it's 20 yards from my pool. and they were just getting after it, chattering big time. And there was two of them. They were flying back and forth and landing between the two trees. And so they'll have their babies in the trees, and then I guess the babies won't get out till they can fly. Because we had some last year up at one of our roost lakes north of here, but I saw them and they were swimming in the water and stuff already. So these ones that are in the neighborhoods, they'll go straight. They're just like a songbird, basically. They'll just go straight from the tree to flying.
They shouldn't. No, the whistling ducks are going to be just like any other species of waterfowl. They're what scientists refer to as being precultural. It means within about 24 hours of when they hatch, they can and will leave the nest and go on and feed and swim and they don't. The parents in waterfowl don't feed the chicks, don't feed the ducklings or goslings or cygnets, whatever we're talking about. They feed on their own. The parents or the hen, the female and ducks will be the one to lead them to the habitats that they need, and they eat on their own.
Well, they're in big trouble in Knox City. We ain't got no water.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering. Like right now we're pretty wet. There's a lot of groundwater standing around it. We just got an inch of rain this morning, but I don't know what they're going to do because it's going to turn off hot and dry here probably in another week. And all of that pond, just that groundwater, the little bit that they could get, it's all going to evaporate. So I don't know what they're going to do.
Our local science teacher told me yesterday that his house, the next door, his neighbor on 5th Street, right in town, they had nests last year. They had a whole nest of them in their neighbors next door, but there's no water. That's what I was wondering. I didn't know. That's kind of weird. I wonder how they adapted after they were born.
Like other than swimming pools, we don't have any bodies of water in town.
Well, so here's what I'll say, and some people aren't going to like to hear this, but sometimes it doesn't work out.
No.
You know, this whole issue of adaptation and trying new things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The times that it does work, if there's anything that's inherited in those ducklings, they're the ones that are going to repeat that year after year, and that's how you develop through time these traditions of where birds go, where they nest, where they winter. Because year after year after year, there have been some places and some decisions that birds make that work out for them. Those are the ones that survive. Those are the ones that get to repeat it and get to teach it to their young. The ones that make the bad decisions, that go to areas that have very unpredictable water, are the ones that probably aren't going to reproduce as much. And so therefore, you're not going to see those places be very, you're not going to see that trend sort of become ingrained. So that's part of how it works.
So
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
So would the parents keep coming back that are here and make like a nest and have little ducklings? Would they come back each year because it's ingrained into them, or would they realize like I'm not raising as many, let's try somewhere else?
That's a great question, and it kind of gets to what we know or don't know about the individual decisions that these birds make from one year to the next. We know if a hen is successful, there's a higher chance that she's going to go back to an area near where she was successful, and then the young also have a tendency to go back near the area where they were hatched and were raised. What birds do when they're not successful? There's probably, I'm not sure I have a great answer to that, other than to say you would hope that they would make a different decision. I'm sure some do, and there's probably some data out there that speaks to some of this for some species, but I don't have it right off the top of my head.
We're gonna have to take this out real quick. If something happens and we get disconnected, we got a severe thunderstorm about 30 minutes away, a pretty bad storm. May not do nothing, may go around us. So just if we get cut off and we go blank, that's what happens. So, we go black, you'll know. Yeah. Which we need the rain. Well, we've been so blessed. I don't know. Okay, that's now that we're getting into this water and stuff. We've got lots of water here. We got lots of sheet water. The playa lakes all caught up water and stuff. I see. Yesterday I saw pairs of mallards. I see lots of blue-winged teal here. I've seen shovelers here. Will they all have their babies here and stay here
this late?
I don't know. I don't know enough about that geography to know what potential nesting habitats you might have. If you do have places for them to nest, I mean, I suspect some will hang around and we'll give it a go. Some blue-winged teal there's been records of blue-winged teal nesting in Louisiana, the Gulf Coast of Louisiana. I'm sure they do in Texas as well. So some of these birds that are more opportunistic, like blue-winged teal, like mallards, I'm not so sure about some of the others. They very well may stop and nest in some of these locations. And it kind of going back to what we discussed just a few minutes ago, if they're successful, you may see their young come back and try to do that again. But if year after year you see that be an unsuccessful strategy, eventually that's going to kind of fade out, or it will continue to occur at just really low levels.
I mean, we got our playa lakes are full. We got a couple of them that are 200 and 300 acres that are, some of them are 8 foot deep in some parts. Probably the Estes probably 8 to 10 foot in the middle of it. But there's a lot of, I mean, it's no different than being in the prairie potholes right now here in places. We've got a lot of water.
But it's just weird that we've been wet before, and I've never, if what you're saying is accurate about seeing blue-winged teal and mallards and shovelers, I don't ever remember a time where we had these big ducks here this late.
You know, they'll do. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you that, other than to say there are very few things that I'm surprised by when it comes to ducks or any other kind of wild animal. They'll do different things at different times. That area, it probably doesn't surprise me, given how much rain you've had over the winter and how good things are, that you've got some birds settling there. Of course, we all know the Playa Lakes region, that area, it could be totally dry next year. And of course, then you're not going to have any birds nesting there. And even if they do try to, they're not going to have a place to raise their brood. So, I would just say, enjoy it while you got it, because it may not have it next year.
We've got a little place. It's a place called the T that we hunt on, and it's a waterway, and it's probably 30 yards across, maybe.
Yeah, maybe
30 yards across, and it's a quarter to half mile long, and it's probably 12 to 18 inches deep, and it's got duckweed all in it and stuff. And the other day I went by it 3 days ago, and I bet there was at least 15 pair of blue-winged teal together on there, 15 different, not together, all pairs, but 15 different ones that I could see just from the road. And that was just looking at the first 100 yards of it. It goes up, it's 10 times longer than that. There's no telling how many. And in 30 years of living out here and being in this business, I've never seen the waterfowl that we have now for this time of year. Now, we've had years that were wet. We've had 20 inches of rain since January 1st here. If you go back to October, we're sitting on 30 inches of rain since October. And it's fixing to rain another big rain, and we're blessed with that, and we need it. But I know it's going to turn off and get dry before long. But we've never had water like this that I can remember this time of year where it just keeps raining.
Yeah. Well, and those birds would have gotten a head start or an early start on breeding there in that region. So you may be seeing some broods on the water here before too long. It'd be really interesting to know if you do see some birds produced. I suspect it will happen,
Yeah, I haven't seen no babies yet.
I saw some blue-winged teal in the Stuttgart area a week and a half ago. Okay. And, over there working on something at the camp. Oh, what's that? Drive, pull off, get the glasses out. And sure enough, they were there, and we talked about it and said, well, maybe they just decided this was far enough, because it's as wet over there as it is in Texas right now. So,
good.
I mean,
they could also be some stragglers.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to know, but that's unless you have these individually marked birds and can track them through time, see where they go. And there's a number of studies out there that are collecting some of that information, some on blue-winged teal, and I'm not as close to those studies, so I can't tell you exactly what some of these outlier birds are doing. But most of the blue-winged teal, I'm pretty confident saying most of the blue-winged teal are up in the prairies right now.
The cinnamon teal left. Because we in the spring, we'll have a lot of cinnamons, beautiful, and you'll see them. Haven't seen one of them in a month. But the blue wings have not. I mean, and it's crazy too, because we can have a water and you can get some sheet water on a place with nothing, and there'll be 15 ducks on it. And you're like, this is, this was like in April. Wasn't a duck here yesterday, and where do they come from? I mean, how do they know it rained overnight and this is the place to be? It just blows my mind how smart they are and how much they adapt. So,
yeah. And sometimes don't you wish we want to know the answer to that, but I think it's also pretty cool that we stay in the dark on how we know some of that, because I mean that continues to drive the mystery of the animals.
It's
right?
part of the magic.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of me wonders because we got cold late here, and I wonder if they just pushed, because we had that big Arctic blast that went deep into Texas. I wonder if it just pushed them deeper, and now they're, like you said, just kind of straggling, coming back up. And then saw water and said, hey, this is good enough.
Well, that is one of the things that we've looked at, some of those radio marked birds, those individually marked birds. And we've seen this a couple of times now in the past 3 or 4 years, where you get those late season Arctic blasts. And once you get into January and February, what those data are tending to show is that those birds, the majority of them seem to hunker down. You don't see a mass exodus from, let's say, your latitude in the Tennessee latitude. You had some experience with this in late January. There's some movement farther south, but they do their best to just hunker down and stick it out at that point because they're already feeling the urge to go back north and get started breeding.
Right.
Christmas and that solstice.
I think there's something to
me
that.
has always been if we don't get a good push before the solstice, they're just
lengthening daylight. We know that it drives things, hormonal changes and behavioral changes in animals. So it makes sense.
That's what's always frustrating about it, because we start in November here, and then like you got all in November, and you got like 2 weeks in December, 3 weeks in December, and then you're like, shit, the solstice is coming up. Like if we don't have them here by now, like we're just not going to get them. And it seems like every January is when we kind of get that Arctic blast. And I'm like y'all, like once the solstice hits, once we get past New Year, I'm like, well, it's going to take something major to get a big influx of birds. And it's frustrating sometimes.
Sometimes I have found hunting in Arkansas where I do, which I've been doing for 17, 18 years now, let it get warm. If it's the second week of January, let some of those birds come back and go ahead and start up north, because I found they're just as fresh going north as they were coming south. Yeah. And instead of preying on cold, I'll prey on hot. I've had wonderful late January hunts in T-shirts.
I've never thought about that, but yeah, that makes sense, because when I was growing up as a kid, we always had a joke, because we'd have our specs early in November, and then we would have primarily the lesser Canadas, and then starting about January, like you said, when it started to warm up, we always made a joke that the Mexicans were coming back with a little bit of an accent because they were coming from Mexico and a suntan. So yeah, that makes sense. Instead of hoping for it to be cold, past the solstice, pray for a little warm streak and get some fresh birds coming up from the south. Damn it. You just blew my mind.
What?
Hunting T-shirts, make it easy on us.
I've had a lot of people talk to me about this, and I've noticed this. I don't see the mallard duck that we saw 5-10 years ago. The numbers are definitely going down on mallards, but it's not really being talked about a lot. What's the situation with the mallards right now?
I think the BPOP number, breeding population number for mallards last year was the lowest in 30 years. So your observation of fewer mallards in your neck of the woods is consistent with what we're seeing continentally. The mid-continent population, that feeds the Central Mississippi Flyway. And why is that? It's being driven kind of by a series of below average years in terms of habitat conditions across the prairies. It's been, if you look back through some of the data, it's been 4 or 5 years since we've had a good swath of the Canadian prairies wet during that breeding season. I mean, we can talk about how things are changing right now. This year, there is some good news up there, but whenever you have 4 or more years strung together of substantially of average or below average habitat conditions, you're going to see population trends kind of track that same direction. And that's where we are. We're a little bit below. Last year, we were, the lowest population for mallards in about 30 years. It was about 23, if I remember correctly, 23% below the long-term average. And total duck populations last year, breeding population size, I think, was about 7% below the long-term average. So not unexpected when you talk to the people that have studied some of those trends in habitat conditions on the prairies, breeding habitat conditions, and how it's going to affect waterfowl when you string those together for multiple years. This is what we get. So that's part of it. And that's actually the biggest part of it. There's been a few other changes, land use changes in weather and patterns throughout fall and winter. We just talked about some of those. Those things all conspire to change what birds are doing and how many of them we're seeing.
So you said it, you string together 4 or 5 bad years. This is the results that you're going to see. How many good years would we have to string together to see that pendulum swing back?
Yep, great question. And I don't have the exact answer for that, but I would say we would need at least 2, 3. We'd want to see about 4. And it's more than just the number of consecutive years where you would want to see good habitat conditions during the breeding season. It's also the scale at which you would want to see those good habitat conditions. And the prairies are really the dynamo for duck production. They're the ones that are highly variable in productivity. When they dry out, of course, there's not a lot of production, but that allows those nutrients to be reabsorbed into the vegetation once it gets wet and it starts to grow. And then that whole cycle of productivity begins again. And a flush of invertebrates provides an incredible amounts of food for ducklings and hens that are laying eggs and so forth. So it's during those years when we're coming out of drought that those wetlands are so productive. So what you really want is for that entire prairie region to be wet for 3-4 years. And if you can string that together, you ought to see really substantial gains in duck populations. That's what we all expect to happen. That's what we've seen multiple times before. And we've, hopefully we're taking a step in that direction with what we're seeing up there on the prairies right now. But that's kind of the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to be, doom and gloom, but there's been ebbs and flows throughout history. I mean, it's nothing new. Just wait it out and it'll come back. It just kind of sucks in the meantime. There's still lots of wetlands, lots of grasslands for ducks to nest in. That's not to take away from the very real threat that continues to face the prairies. There's native grasses that continue to be converted every year. There are wetlands that continue to be drained, a lot of them in Canada, drained and marginalized. And those are the things that we in Ducks Unlimited and others work every day to conserve, protect, and then restore some of those lost areas. So,
Andy, I think the point that you just made and Doc talked about was they have to go dry.
Sure.
I mean, this and for young hunters, it's so difficult, especially those that have never been up there, to understand that there is a life cycle to a prairie pothole, and if it stays wet too long, it's not a prairie pothole, it's a lake.
Yep.
And it'll start growing brim and everything else, and there's no nutrients for those birds, and it is just an unfortunate necessity. And this is something that I continue to try to share with those young duck hunters, is that you are going to experience lean years. It has to be that way or it will go away.
Yeah. The other thing that makes it difficult, we don't want to get too far down into the weeds here on this, but the fact that we've had liberal seasons for 26, 27 years, that kind of sends a signal that it's supposed to be great. It's supposed to be good. Really what the 26 or 20, whatever the math is, what that signals is a greater understanding by our harvest management community on the very small effect that harvest at the levels that we are responsible for through hunting actually makes on population change. We used to tinker with those regulations on a yearly basis whenever you go back before 1995. We being the harvest management community, Ducks Unlimited doesn't have a seat at those tables, but we've learned that harvest at the levels that we are seeing through our regulations just does not drive the annual changes that we see in duck populations. It's the habitat and the changes from year to year in the dynamic nature of habitat.
15% of all mallards, I read years ago, and I've read it more than once, die or are gone every year. But whether it's disease, famine, starving, shooting, lead poisoning, whatever the hell it is, it's 15%. Is that pretty accurate?
It's actually more than that. The average annual survival rate for mallards is going to range from 55 to about 70 to 75%, depending on which age and sex cohort you're talking about. Juvenile birds, first-year birds, males and females, are going to have the lowest survival. They're going to be in that 55 to 65% range. And then you look at adult males and adult females, and they're more in that 65, 75% range.
So 30% of all the ducks are going to be gone in a year anyways.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we do
regardless
or don't
of
do.
liberal bag limits or not.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far down into that because then we get into the additive and compensatory mortality and exactly how all that plays out, and that's not my strong suit. But yeah, about 30% or so, give or take, of mallards are gonna die every year.
So us going to a 3-bird duck limit on mallards isn't going to make one hill of beans in the overall look of it.
I would probably say I don't know. That's just kind of where I have to just be careful in talking about things I don't know a whole lot about. We don't implement, or our Fish and Wildlife and state agency partners don't use harvest regulations as a way to grow population sizes. What they try to do with those is match those regulations during any kind of given year with what the data are telling them, and our years of studying are telling us the productive capacity of that population is at a given point in time. And so there's a number of objectives that we try to achieve through harvest regulations. Some relates to ensuring we're not over-harvesting the birds. You can over-harvest any population if you try hard enough. That is a fact. The regulated harvest that our state and federal agency partners have committed themselves to prevent that from happening. And so the liberal, moderate, restrictive, those are packages that are intended to match kind of the productive capacity that we're seeing over a period of time, based on the data that they get from the population habitat surveys.
I think that I would love to see them go to a 3-bird duck limit and keep the days. So your days
But
are the same.
are they even talking about restricting?
I don't know. You're talking to these guys, Ducks Unlimited guys, no more than we do. I've heard that is that they are talking about it. I've heard the sandhill crane limit's going to go down in the next couple of years too.
So what I can tell you about, whether we're talking mid-continent mallards, western mallards, or the Atlantic flyway kind of general duck season framework, the option, a restrictive option, is always a possibility, but it's going to be dictated by the data that come in from the surveys that are being conducted. Like for the upcoming season, the 24-25 hunting season, those regulations are already set.
Right.
They changed things a few years ago, right, where they're starting to set regulations a year out, and that's a whole other conversation. But the breeding population survey is ongoing right now as we speak here in late May. Those data will be summarized and presented later this summer. Those data will be the ones to determine what they select for the regulatory packages for 25-26. It's possible that it could land on the moderate recommendation. It's possible that it could land on the restrictive recommendation, and it could also land on the liberal recommendation the way it has done for over 2 decades. So given what we've seen in terms of population levels over the past few years, and given where we were a few months ago with regard to dryness on the prairies, there was increasing chatter about the possibility of a restrictive season being more likely than it ever had been before. But that's just people kind of speculating, trying to do the handicapping on what they think the numbers are going to be whenever the survey's done.
Right. So this ties into the next question that I had. It just came out 2 weeks ago, a week ago, something like that, about the pintail, 3 pintail bag limit proposed for 25-26.
I think that's Pacific Coast, isn't it? Pacific Flyway?
Pacific, Central, and Mississippi Flyways, a three pintail bag in years. Anyway.
I can clarify some of that. Do you have a specific question, or you just want me to try to clarify
I just wanted to clarify it because, it was going around a couple weeks ago and everybody was speculating on what it meant.
Yeah. So that is so you have overarching frameworks for your duck season within Pacific Flyway, then the Central and Mississippi, and then the Atlantic Flyway. And those overarching frameworks, days and the number of days and the bag limit, they're set using certain criteria, some of which we've just talked about. Within that overarching framework, there are other harvest strategies, some which relate to specific species. Pintail is one of those. So there is a pintail harvest management strategy that their federal and state partners have been using since I think it's 2010. And they would, has some decision rules in there, and it would tell them what the recommended pintail bag limit is within that overarching framework. What happened a few weeks ago, and this is actually, they've been working on this for about 4 or 5 years. The states and federal partners have been using updated data and newer modeling techniques, state-of-the-art modeling techniques to develop better models that are more descriptive, capture more of the dynamics of the pintail population, including the effects of harvest. The more data we get, the more advanced we get with modeling techniques and tools, the the better we were able to kind of describe what's happening with duck populations, right? So we're constantly trying to improve. And so this is a new harvest strategy for pintails. And what it does, the 3 pintail limit that you referenced, what it does is it gives that as a possibility. This strategy has 4 options, basically: closed season, 1 pintail bag limit, 2 pintail bag limit, and a 3 pintail bag limit. The previous harvest strategy for pintails did not offer the 3 pintail bag limit. It had been since 1997 since hunters in the U.S. have been even able to think about the possibility of a 3 pintail bag limit. So it does not mean that 25, 26 will have a 3 pintail bag limit. We don't know what it's going to be. We won't know what that recommendation is going to be until the results come in from the current waterfowl breeding population and habitat survey. The pintail population size, along with the average latitude of settling of pintails that they count during that survey, are what will determine whether it's a 1, 2, or 3 pintail bag limit. If the pintail population is estimated below 1.2 million, the harvest strategy is going to recommend a closed season. So the other thing that I will say, and it's for all 4 flyways, this harvest strategy applies to all 4 flyways. The Pacific, Central, and Mississippi will be subject to that, 1 pintail, 2 pintail, or 3 pintail option, depending on what the conditions show. The Atlantic Flyway, during any year when the pintail season is open, when BPOP for pintails is above 1.2 million, Atlantic Flyway states will have the option of a 3 pintail bag limit, just because there's very little pintail harvest that occurs there. So there are still a few steps that I think have to be taken before that strategy becomes final, but it was approved by the Service Regulations Committee. And we've gotten a lot of questions about that as well. We've developed some communication around it, try to educate some of our folks about it. And so I've been talking with our state partners and kind of making sure I'm understanding things correctly. But at the high level, what I described, I'm confident in putting out there.
What's your prediction, Andy, for us?
I don't know, man. I can't put my thumb on the pintails, because like a year or two ago, like we were within like 100,000 or something of a closed season, and now we've got this. So
I bet it's 1.
I'm gonna say 1.
I'm saying 1 too. What do y'all think in Texas? 1, 2, 3, or 0?
Don't guess.
Is this just a guess?
Just a guess.
I mean, this is going to Vegas and putting some money on the table and picking
your money on
If you were sitting up here at a table and I said, David, what the hell's your opinion on if we're going to have pintails
where are you pushing your money to?
Well, I put a lot of faith in Alberta when it comes to what the pintails are going to be, and it's not real wet up there. I'll leave it at that.
So you're going with 1 or 0 also then?
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
I don't think we'll have a closed season. I have my thoughts, but I'm going to keep them to myself. I hate to do that, but I'm just not in a position.
You can't do that.
He doesn't go to Vegas.
The scientists can't do it. The guy that did fundraising, I can just throw numbers everywhere. What do I know?
When was the last time that we had a closed pintail season?
Before I was alive.
We've had a season within a season. Mm-hmm. So here's the other thing that I'll clarify. We've had some people ask about this. Within this new pintail harvest strategy, and I'm going to describe this. I'm not going to be able to explain why, because these are discussions that occur among our state and federal partners, and they're the ones that have laid all this out throughout the past few years and made some of these the decisions. There is no sex restriction within this new pintail harvest strategy, just the same as there wasn't under the kind of current way of the regulations for pintails. So in theory, you could shoot 3 hen pintails if you get a year where you've got a 3 pintail bag limit, or you could shoot 3 drakes. I think most people will shoot 3 drakes if they have that option. So anyway, no sex restriction within this new pintail harvest strategy, assuming it makes it across the final hurdles. And in terms of why that is, that's not really a decision that I was involved in, so you'd have to talk to the folks that were in order to get that official answer.
So really, this was kind of much ado about nothing. This got a lot of people kind of all razzed up for something that may happen. Like, why did they even put this in there? You know what I mean? Like, why even...
Well, it's big news. Like the opportunity to have a 3 pintail limit And so here's the other thing. That this comes from a report. So they used this new model and this new harvest strategy to simulate what pintail regulations would be, kind of given our recent history with pintail population levels. And the projected or predicted frequency, simulated frequency, whatever word we want to use, of 3 pintail limits is like 50% of the years we would expect to have a 3 pintail limit. I forget what the 1 bird and 2 bird. The way this model works is that it toggles mostly between a 1 bird limit and a 3 bird limit. Again, it's all simulations. These are in the reports that I've seen. It's not final yet until it makes it across some of these other hurdles. But it's that I think, Andy, that's why people kind of got excited about it. You saw we put out some information on it, making people aware of it. You saw Cal Waterfowl do the same, Delta Waterfowl did the same, because it's potentially a big deal for people that tell us all the time how there are some days where they are covered up with drake pintails. And that's not – pintails are really interesting in that there are some parts of the country where you get those large concentrations of birds. And the new understanding behind some of the data and the models are suggesting that there's additional pintail harvest opportunity out there. Again, harvest is not what drives the annual ups and downs of our duck populations. The other thing about this strategy is they're considering it experimental. We don't have a lot of experience with a 3 pintail limit. So after they get 3 years of experience with it, they're going to reevaluate it because they want to make sure, that we're constantly updating our understanding of how we're managing these populations. So that's what's all laid out. It's what was approved by the SRC. Not final yet. And just kind of stay tuned on how all that ultimately plays out.
When would you expect an answer? August?
I'm not. I don't know. I'm going to kind of dodge that question because you're kind of getting into some technical things on when certain decisions are made. We'll have the breeding population habitat survey results out by late August, assuming all the other things kind of fall into place between now and then. You might see the formal recommendation based on that new harvest strategy to appear also in late August. That's kind of what I'm looking for. But again, I'm not making any official statements about that. But that's the time frame that we can look to.
Late summer, early fall, you can expect to see something.
We'll know more by late fall for sure. Well, late summer, that last part of August. Yeah.
I'm 56. I've been seriously waterfowl hunting for 48 years. I was 8 years old when I really, really got into it with my dad, and we went all the time. And I grew up during the point system in Texas. And there's a lot of days that there was 3 of us killed more than 30 birds. We should have done some things illegal when I was a kid, I'm telling you. But I don't remember ever shooting 10 pintails in a day. And that was our limit growing up as a kid. I know on the Texas coast, there was a lot of places the guys would shoot 10 pintails. But we just, out here in West Texas, we didn't have the pintails like we do now. Some years we are just covered up with pintails, and some years it's mallards and the peanuts. Bird? But when I was a kid, it was a 10-point bird. We could kill 10. You kill 10 green-winged teal, 10 mallards. I think only 5 widgeons and 5 gadwalls, 1 mallard hen, 1 canvasback. Or you could kill 2 mallard hens. It was a 70-point duck. It depended how you do it. But we.
What time of day you shot it in? Is that what it was?
What? Yeah.
Whether you got your 70 points off the bat or.
Well, yeah, you always shot the mallard hen last. It didn't matter what happened. That was the creme de la creme. Or the same with the canvasback. But I don't remember. I remember shooting pintails as a kid growing up, but I don't ever remember in North Texas shooting 30 pintails with 3 of us. I don't even remember ever shooting 10 as a group, ever.
Yeah.
And
there was no sex restriction back then either.
No.
At least, and it bounced around from year to year. 35 points, and I'm not saying for pintails, but for some species, it would bounce around from 25 points to 35 points. And I asked a question of a guy a few years ago who was involved in some of that. I said, what kind of science was used to go from 25 points to 35 points and so forth? He's like, not a whole lot.
No.
A lot of, and that's big advancement that we made with adaptive harvest management, the system that we're in right now. It's data based. It's, I don't want to get all back down into that, but yeah, the point system, you could shoot 10 hen pintails, 10 drake pintails during some of those years.
I think a mallard drake was 20, 25, or 35, depending on the year. I think in some years it was a 20-point duck. And we shot a lot of mallards and we shot a lot of widgeons, but God, we killed the shit out of the green-winged teal. What's always funny, I always thought was a hooded merganser was a 75-point duck. I don't know anybody that shoots a hooded merganser other than to get it mounted and you never shoot another one again.
Yeah. I mean, they're a beautiful bird. You shoot a drake and get it mounted. My dad had one mounted. I remember that being one of the prettiest birds that he had in the house.
But after that, you don't want to shoot one again.
Yeah. Right.
So next question. You guys partnered. We talked to you last time, Mike, with Dr. Philip Lavretsky with the Duck DNA project. Tell me about this Lewistic American black duck.
Oh yeah, you saw that.
I saw that. Yes, it is a very good looking. I'm looking at it right now. It's a beautiful bird.
That was one of the more exciting kind of discoveries that came out of that Duck DNA project this year. And this guy was not one of the folks that we originally selected, and we had some kits that we sort of set aside for this type of situation. People called us with and we advertised this on the website there, duckdna.com. If you had a interesting hybrid or interesting bird and you want to get it tested, we had a number of vials that we kept that we held back, and he contacted us. And that story is pretty cool about his wife actually doing the searching. There's surely you can get DNA testing for ducks, right? Who would have thought about that? They had no idea that our Duck DNA project was even in place. Found it, contacted us, and we sent the kit. And Phil told me he thought it was going to be a mallard with some that had hybridized with some kind of feral variety, but turns out 100% American black duck, female, incredible looking bird, an incredible story. And that was just really cool. It created a lot of buzz around the project that we've got going, and also a lot of buzz just around the fascinating things that we see in waterfowl and any other kind of bird. So that's pretty cool.
That's a female.
That was a female, right? And so I would never have guessed black duck. But I didn't have it in hand. I don't have a whole lot of experience with odd plumaged birds, and so there might be somebody out there that says they saw it and realized right off the bat it was a black duck, but we've not talked to that person yet. So
I would have never guessed that was a black duck.
Yeah, I'm looking at I'm like you. I'd have said mallard with farm duck or something in it.
Yeah, 100%. And that 100% match is something that we didn't see a lot of. Even most of the mallards that we got in through that project would come in 94%, 96%. And that doesn't mean that they weren't 100%. It's just that the DNA didn't match 100% with the standard that Phil has in that in that test. And there could be a number of reasons. There could be some partial DNA degradation or some, all sorts of different things that could cause that only partial match. But it could also be, like on a lot of our birds, we would see, 74% mallard and 22% black duck or something. And that was one of the more interesting things. One of the birds that I shot this year and submitted for testing, I would have sworn was just a regular mallard, Drake mallard. Turned out to be probably a third generation hybrid mallard black duck. Like it was somewhere back, 2 generations back, there was a mallard black duck hybrid. And so then that offspring kept back crossing with a mallard and got the bird that I shot. And so we saw a fair bit of that. So
this looks substantially smaller than the duck that's next to it. There's 2 pictures posted, and I don't know enough about black ducks. It looks like a hen black duck.
Flip your screen so I can see that a little bit.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It looks like a hen black duck that it's next to, but the Lewistic one looks considerably smaller than the other one that's next to it.
Was the other one, was the black duck a drake? I can't remember. I can't remember.
I don't know enough about black ducks. judge it on the hoof.
Okay.
You looking at me to tell you? I couldn't tell you a black duck. It's like a Canada goose. They look a speck. If they all look the same to me, unless their penis is hanging out, I don't know what they are, male or female.
Yeah, that's another way to tell.
You didn't do a penis check on that picture, so
I can't. I would, if it was available.
how can you tell a male black duck from a female black duck by just looking?
So there's going to be some bill coloration differences. Golly, and my brain is freezing on me right now.
Put him on the spot.
Yeah, I know. I think the Drake has the more olive bill on the black duck. Yeah.
Well, maybe that is a Drake thing because that's kind of looks
Flip
all.
that.
And there may be differences on the wing as well. I'd have to go back and kind of refresh. I don't see a lot of black ducks. I mean, in hand, and I don't participate in the wing bees, and so I'm not, not really up to speed on some of those finer distinction characteristics.
I've got a black duck mounted in there. The greatest taxidermist in the world, Mr. Pat Pitt, gave me one that's in my lodge dining room. I'm gonna go look at it and see if I can tell the difference. Yeah. So the olive looking bill. Well, I don't have one to judge it by, so I guess I don't know.
But even this Lewistic, its bill is more kind of this farm duck orange that you would see. Yeah, I mean, I'd have been totally thrown for a loop. But that's why projects like that are cool, is because you get a definitive answer.
What other weird ducks did y'all get this year in that situation? Did y'all get any Eurasian widgeon?
We didn't get any Eurasian widgeon. We got one of the more interesting things that Phil noted to me is that I think we had 2 brewer's ducks, which is a hybrid between a mallard and a gadwall. And so if you see a hybrid bird like that, you would think probably that it was a male mallard mating with a female gadwall. Mm-hmm. What his data show, because you can do the mitochondrial DNA analysis, mitochondrial DNA is inherited from the female, right? So for both of those birds, it was a male gadwall that bred with a female mallard. So we're going to learn some of those types of bits of information from this project. Some of it is gee whiz, but still, I mean, gee whiz drives the passion for a lot of duck hunters, a lot of waterfowl hunters. And so pretty cool stuff. I think there was a pintail mallard hybrid. I don't remember which was the male and female in that. A lot of mallard black duck hybrids, first generation, second and third generation, and then a fair number of course, mallard wild and game farm mallards as well. But nothing truly. This leucistic black duck was the one that was like the oddball of them all.
Well, that's a trophy. What did we send in? Didn't we kill a weird duck?
I can't remember.
I thought we killed a mallard that was maybe didn't have any testosterone or estrogen or some shit. One of those females that was going to male. I thought we sent in one that we killed a weird duck last year, and I thought we'd send it in.
Last year was a blur. I didn't kill it, so.
We had something we sent in. I was almost positive you sent something in. Maybe I'm wrong then. I thought we'd killed a weird mallard last year, which we kill every year. We'll kill one of the hens that quit producing estrogen, and they,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did not get any of those this year that I'm aware of. We expect that to be the type of bird that eventually we'll get 1 or 2 of those. But yeah, we're continuing it again this year. We've had tremendous response. People have been super engaged. We still got a few samples that are still being analyzed. People can go to that website, duckdna.com, and kind of check out the results from this year. We're going to continue to update those results, and it's been pretty cool. We've had people saying you ought to think about trying to use this to set aside some for youth, for young hunters, which is a fabulous idea, and trying to drum up more interest and support and for youth in waterfowl hunting. So we'll probably try to do some of that. And it's just sort of a testament to the passion and interest and geekiness, if I can say that, of a lot of our waterfowl hunters, and we fall in that category, I guarantee.
What about we talk about the female mallard that we shoot every year? We kill one with no estrogen and stuff, but it's just mallards. But I know it's got to be a duck thing. All ducks do it, but
they do. That's one of the, we'll probably figure that out too.
But we don't ever see like a redhead that doesn't do it, or a canvasback, or a it's the mallard hen that we notice that does it, but it's got to be something that affects all ducks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it just goes unnoticed because if it's a diver, it just looks like some obscure duck. And a lot of people have difficulty identifying divers to age and species and sex combinations anyway, and they probably don't really check up on that. And so I think a lot of that probably just gets lost. I've seen a few examples, like photos of pintails that have gone through that, hen pintails that are taking on those male characteristics. So it happens.
So you mentioned something earlier. You said that your black duck or your mallard that had black duck genetics in it. How many generations would you have to go forward to where you see, okay, you've got this hybrid, and then, like you said, 3 generations, it's unrecognizable from what the parents were. You know what I mean? Is it two, 3 generations?
I'm not the geneticist here,
right?
But I can tell you, based on a sample of 1, maybe 3 generations.
3.
The bird that I shot, you know. So I don't know. That's a question that Phil's going to be better equipped to answer. My guess is you're looking at 3 or 4 back crosses, and by then, phenotypically, based on appearance, you're not going to be able to tell the difference.
Right. It's all fascinating stuff. I mean, like you said, though, like anything to appeal to more hunters in a different way than just the traditional way of doing things is gonna, you're just gonna get more people to the table.
Yeah.
And
this is providing data that is useful to our scientists. That's the other important point that I make. And it's not just the game farm mallard issue that we're contributing data to address. It's this exploding field of greater understanding of how genetics controls everything from migratory behaviors to breeding locations to potentially migratory patterns and movements, and who knows what else. And it's not just waterfowl where we're seeing an explosion of this. It's actually in a lot of other bird species and taxonomic groupings where we've seen, I would say, greater advancements in trying to address some of those specific questions. How does genetics control all the different things that birds do? And so we're building this, helping Phil build this large database. Phil and others will have the questions that they want to answer. Some may have management implications. Some may just be sort of basic science and understanding more of what it is that's controlling what those animals are doing. So it's more than just, it's a whole number of things, and that's what's really cool. It's actual data, contributing to science, answering questions, and then just getting people really, really fired up about the whole project and hunting in general.
What's fascinating to me, a month or so ago, we had Greer Smith with 50 ducks on, and we were looking at the migration pattern of all of these different geotag birds. And it's so crazy to me how year after year after year, they will fly almost to the mile and stop. I mean, it's just pinpoint accuracy year after year after year. And they're doing it. Humans couldn't do that. You know what I mean? If you just said, hey, go to Canada and come back year after year, you would take different paths. It would just be a train wreck. And then here we feel like we're superior to all these different beings, and like it's just a bird that can stop at the exact same pond within 2 or 3 days of where it was last year at this time. And it's crazy to me that they do it.
Yeah. Again, fascinating birds, and fortunate to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean that's the magic of what makes them so special, and why they show up overnight in the fall, and why they leave in the springtime, and where do they go, and what do they do, and we've talked about it before. It's different than anything else out there, and I love sitting in the tree stand, or I love hearing a turkey gobble, 30 minutes before sunrise, and running to go get up under it. But there's nothing like when those birds arrive from the north. It's different, or at least for those of us that love it, it's different. For the turkey hunters out there, I get it. Y'all are sick too. But we're sick in our own way.
Yeah. Guys, I probably need to run back to a meeting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I can do is I can give your listeners a little bit of an update on prairie habitat conditions, because I was actually up there last week, and I talked to several other folks right before we got online with you here. I spoke with some of our colleagues from North Dakota, also from Saskatchewan. They're over in the meeting right now. Things are better right now than they have been, or than they were like 2 months ago. 2 months ago, things were grim across the entire prairies. And then we've seen a pretty substantial change in the weather patterns across across a good portion of the prairies, both the U.S. side and Canadian side. The Dakotas are, from a moisture condition, from a pond condition standpoint, in pretty darn good shape. You can look at some of the drought maps now, and they're not showing any drought in the Dakotas. There are places in Canada, the Canadian prairies, that have benefited from some timely rain. There was a lot of activity in Alberta when I was there last week, lots of breeding activity, lots of just a proliferation of invertebrates from some of those wetlands that had been dry for about 2 or 3 years. Really, really incredible to see that. So there's some baby ducks that are being made, and they're going to be on the wing this fall. Now, just to try to temper folks' expectation, you got to remember that we went into this spring with a breeding population size that was lower than average. So whenever you're starting with a breeding stock that's lower than average, you're going to be it's going to take a few years, as we talked about earlier, to climb that hill. The other thing about the moisture that we've seen on the prairies, it came a little late to influence heavily the settling patterns of the birds. Some of the birds that made it to the prairies early and found dry conditions might have skipped over the prairies and gone on into the boreal forest. So we wouldn't have had all that rain that we're seeing up there now, wouldn't have benefited nesting birds as much. Now, those birds that settled in the prairies and have now seen all this rain fall and fill a lot of shallow basins and semi-permanent basins, really good conditions for raising broods. Broods are going to grow fast because they've got access to abundant food resources. They're going to have good cover to hide from predators, escape from predators. So, optimistic about brood survival in some of those areas where there is water. And the other thing, just for folks to keep in mind, the boreal forest is, unless things have changed here recently, it continues to be really, really dry up there in Canada. I think they're already dealing with some fires. So it's better, like in the big picture of where we look for duck production. It's much better than it was 2 months ago. But none of this changes in overnight. So again, moving in the right direction on this, and we just need to sustain this. I've also heard from our DU Canada colleague that the improved soil moisture condition in Canada has resulted in near record interest by from a lot of producers in Canada for enrolling in DU Canada's forage program, where we do cost share for them to reestablish grass and forbs, sort of alfalfa mix on cropland. So that's a great thing. I think he told me 36,000 acres of that they're going to be able to put on the ground up there in Canada this year, from taking marginal cropland, putting it into some of this forage production. So that's a great bit of news. Those 10-year contracts. And hopefully that they continue on, support beef. Look, if y'all want to do something to help, the simple thing to help duck production, eat beef.
Eat a steak.
Eat a steak, man. That is not an exaggeration. The stronger the beef market is here in North America, the better position we're in to make positive change and to hang on to that grass in the prairies. That is no lie.
A strong beef market. I never would have thought about it.
I do a lot of beef eating.
That's right.
So.
Dr. Mike, thank you
share.
so much. We'll let you get on, and then we'll finish up with David here. Thank you so much for hopping on here. It's been incredibly enlightening, and we'll wait for the numbers to come out later this summer, and we'll have a better indication of what we can look at and what we can expect here in just it's not too far away.
Love to do it. Yep. Love to do it. Thanks, guys. Dave, thank you. We'll have to do more of this. Conservation, event-based fundraising. It's all a good deal. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.
So,
David's got the best job at Ducks Unlimited.
Just
I get to hang out with people like that.
Get out there and exactly.
Hey,
you know what it's like to be in an office during hunting season and you want to figure something out. You just walk down to his office and he's got all the answers. I mean, I'm so lucky.
I need someone with the office like by me for all my answers. I could sure use that myself. How's the fundraising going? We having a record year for Ducks Unlimited this year?
Another record year for Ducks Unlimited. Not quite finished. Our fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30, but I can already tell you it's another record year. And we're announcing a lot of accolades here, a lot of winners, but I can go ahead and share some of the big awards with y'all. Our biggest event of the year, and this is for fiscal year. Actually, this is for last fiscal year, but what we're celebrating here, or last calendar year, the biggest event of the year will be our Charleston, South Carolina chapter and that big oyster roast that they do at the Southeastern Wildlife Expo. So this is the second year in a row that was the largest event of the year. So for those listeners that are in Charleston, South Carolina, you should be very proud of your chapter there. The largest high school chapter will be Jackson Preparatory School out of Jackson, Mississippi. Ooh. The largest college chapter will be NC State, North Carolina State out of Raleigh, which, brag for a little minute, 23 years ago, I started that chapter. So I am thrilled to see my Wolf Pack take home the national championship. And then something really special that we're going to be announcing here. We have what's called State Excellence Awards, and it's like the Olympics. If you achieve certain things, you're a bronze state or a silver state or a gold state. And for the first time ever, we have a state that got gold 5 years in a row, and that's the state of Idaho. Whoa. For the first time ever. So it's a big celebration of Idaho and their state chairman, Riley Mahaffey here, because I've never seen it before. So we call that a Diamond State Excellence Award, and I've never presented it before. So that's kind of special. So a lot of celebrating going on here. And I'll tease a little something that I'm not allowed to talk about right now. If your listeners will go in about a week to ducks.org, maybe a week and a half, you will see some news about a gift to Ducks Unlimited for the Prairie Pothole region for work up there, that area that Mike was just talking about, an unprecedented gift for the Prairie Pothole region that's going to allow Ducks Unlimited to do more of those things that we do there in the programs that we were talking about with our partner with DU Canada. And we are all walking around here on cloud 9 right now, knowing what is about to happen up in the breeding grounds when we can put this magnificent gift to use. But I'm not at liberty to say anything more about it than that. But we're really excited about what it's going to do for all waterfowl hunters up there.
Got to wait a week to find out. It sounds like the boys in the Carolinas are just killing it right now with the fundraising.
We're killing it everywhere, but yes, North and South Carolina, they have been having very good years. In fact, we number our regions and all of our regions around the country, and there's 8 of them. All of them are showing growth. But over there in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia, that's called Region 7, and they have been on a tear here recently. That really probably we've never seen event fundraising grow at the rate and that's the one I came up in both as a volunteer and then as a regional director for Ducks Unlimited. And what they've done the past 5 or 6 years is just unbelievable. But it's a lot of passionate people over there who are enjoying volunteering for the organization and having a good time with people that are just like them. And it's fun. It's just great to be a part of. I mean, coming to this convention, and I know people, I'm blessed to know people from all over the country that I meet at this, and I get to work with them. And it's just, I wake up every morning when I'm at this thing just so happy because I get to see all my crazy duck hunting friends that also either through a volunteer perspective or a staff perspective, we're all chasing that same goal, which is a whole bunch of birds in the air for everybody to enjoy. So yeah, it's fun.
Name the top 5 colleges if you can. Is A&M in there?
Yes. Ooh. The top 5. I'll just give you a list of maybe some of those that are year in and year out, kind of the big producers. LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, NC State, Auburn here recently.
Southeast Conference, basically.
Yeah, but there's some schools up north that are also climbing up into that. University of Wisconsin Stevens Point is one that is doing really well on their fundraising right now. And I know I'm forgetting some out there, and I know I always say that, but those are just kind of the ones that come top of mind, that we just kind of see at the top of the list. But I will tell you that the first college chapter was incorporated at the University of Texas at Austin. And then number 2 was LSU, and number 3 was Ole Miss, and then Iowa State. So you see kind of that power alley with them, but at the same time, we talked about where birds go to reproduce. That's also where it's the most, I guess, the oldest part of the program is through that and kind of up through the Big Ten or whatever we want to call them.
It's amazing.
Now,
I'm going to tell you,
the Big Six.
That Ducks Unlimited's got the greatest franchise in the world, and just every DU. I have not been to a ton of different DU banquets. I've probably been to 6 different chapters banquets, but it's all the same formula. A little alcohol, a lot of cool paintings, guns, decoys, and chicks in camo selling raffle tickets. And that is a recipe to make a lot of money. I don't give a shit what you're selling. That's the key right there. And they've got it down to a science, and throw in good food.
Good food, but really the number one ingredient is the volunteers.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
I mean, there's only 100 field staff out there. And think about this: 4,400 events a year with 100 field staff. 100 people could not do that. And I have a awesome field staff. I mean, my team is incredible. They couldn't hold 4,400 events on their own. It's the volunteers, and this is a volunteer-driven organization. The top person is a volunteer. The president of the organization is a volunteer. The chairman of the board is a volunteer, and all of our local chapters and our state leaders, it's all people giving their time and their dime to do it because they love what Ducks Unlimited does. So, and it's really deep.
Lift the veil a little bit on what goes into. You said you're going to have a new president. Tonight? I think is what it is. How does all that work? Like how do we? Are there certain people that are up for it every year, or how do we get?
Yeah, so there's a nominating committee, which is all volunteers, who will take a look at kind of a slate that obviously is going to be inside of the existing board of directors. I mean, somebody just isn't going to walk in off the street and become the president of Ducks Unlimited. Right. But that nominating committee meets several times and votes on who is going to step into these different roles, and then we have representatives from each state that will come, and during our business session. That slate of nominations will be presented, and they're called state trustees and national delegates, and they will actually have an aye vote, and then that slate of representation goes in. There are some positions on our board, and I kind of consider it like the president of the U.S.'s cabinet. There are certain positions that are advisory positions where that president gets to choose who is going to sit in those positions, but the volunteers that are out in the volunteer structure that oversees our event fundraising, those are positions that are voted on. There's nominations taken, then they're voted on, and then they're appointed by the state trustees and national delegates. Something that I think doesn't get talked about often enough with Ducks Unlimited is, we've been around for longer than 85 years, and we've never had a scandal. We've never been in the Wall Street Journal. No newspaper writer or journalist has ever won a Pulitzer based on something bad that DU did. And it's because of this structure and in limited terms that we have on our board of directors that runs this organization, that everything that we do is overseen by these volunteers and a board of 64 that is looking and making sure that we do the right things and don't get off on some of these bad tracks that you see some of the other nonprofits, and I'm not talking about conservation, but just other nonprofits where they get in trouble. That's never happened at DU because of just how open our books are, how open all of our operations are with our board of directors, and I'm proud of that fact that it is a clean and just an open book type of an organization for the volunteers, not only that run it at the board level, but also at our local levels.
Are all of these positioned two-year appointments?
2 years. Yep.
2 years. Has it always been that way?
It's always been that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know if at one time you did 4, kind of like the United States does, or if it was always 2 years.
You know, in our past, you know, I think going back years and years, maybe a first vice president passed while sitting, and so somebody might go 3 years or something like that. But the chairman of the board and the president's term is a 2-year term. That's not to say that some advisory senior vice presidents might serve for 2 presidents, but the top 2 positions, the chairman of the board and the are 2-year terms. And they are term limited in those positions.
So tease us a little bit about next year's Ducks Unlimited event. What can you tell us? When, where, how, what? What can you tell us? Anything
about
next
year's events? Well, if we're going to, so I would tell you that right now we probably have one of the coolest merchandise packages that we've ever had. But as we look forward into next year, and next year being calendar year, because all of our merchandise runs on a calendar year, I believe that quite possibly from the art that's going to be in there, from the firearms that have been selected to be in there, it could be the best base package that our chapters will have ever received. The firearms, we for the first time ever that we have worked a deal with Colt to actually have a Colt pistol as our handgun of the year. We have some Henry big boys that are going to be inside of our events. That'll be the rifle of the year. That is truly one of the most jaw-dropping rifles that I've ever seen. And we have a 410 automatic that is going to be there that I don't know if I've ever seen a prettier 410 than what's going to be at our events next year. And so we still have this fall fundraising season, to get through, but next year's package is going to be something really special. And I'll tell you, and I know I'm going to want to come back sometime this fall to tease the end of the vault. But gentlemen, we have, and I say it every single year, I thought I had seen everything. When I come back in October or early November to talk about End of the Vault, the stuff that has been coming in has just been absolutely jaw-dropping. They talk about the transfer of wealth of the greatest generation, right? We're seeing it, and for that generation, that World War II generation, or the boomers that came after the World War II generation, as they get rid of all this old artwork and some of these old firearms and other things, just what comes in on a daily basis donated to us to resale is just blowing my mind. But I'm going to save that.
Save it.
I'm going to save it and we have something to talk about this fall.
What about the expo? How's that? How are the plannings coming for that next year?
So that will be August of 25. So we're more than a year out. I am thrilled to tell you that we probably have 65% of that massive 185,000 square foot floor space already committed to. with commitments coming every day. So we hit the sweet spot on that early August, right there on the Mississippi River in Memphis, right there in the Mississippi Flyway, and the word of mouth inside of the industry, as well as just calling on our partners and people who are with us in Texas. We are super, super excited about what's going to happen that first weekend in August of 2025 when we bring the DUX Expo to the Renaissance Convention Center in downtown Memphis. And of course, I saved y'all a spot, so you've got your spot.
We look
Awesome.
forward to it.
I am
We
looking
can't
forward
wait
to
to be
that.
there. What are the dates on that?
It is
Put you on a bad spot here.
in a bad spot. I'm going to have to grab my phone, but it's the first Saturday in August. I think August 1st is that Saturday. Hold on, I'm pulling up my phone right now. I ought to have that memorized by now.
You're still a year away.
So it's August 1st through 3rd.
Perfect.
So the first is a Friday and the third is a Sunday, and it'll open at noon on Friday, August 1st, and run through Sunday afternoon. But again, this is 2025.
Right.
So we are, I guess, 13 months out from that.
Very cool. Yeah, I talked to, Jimbo was out here and talked to Gabe. Sounds like you guys are blowing and going on the planning of that. It's going to be a great event.
Yeah, we are. Yep, we're very, very excited about it.
We can't wait. Well, listen, we know you got a jam-packed. When do you go back? You there through the weekend?
Go back home on Sunday morning.
So it's a full weekend of talking ducks with some cool people. So
That's
right.
a cool town.
This weather just blows. I can't understand how every single day of the year, and I know it's the Pacific and the mountains and it traps the cool air and all of that. But if I could take this weather to, I'd be a very happy man, because it is really, really nice to be walking around in quarter zips, or when you have to put on a sports coat, put it on and be comfortable, because it's been hot.
Everybody I know, that's the same thing they always say. I don't know why anybody would want to live in California, because of the weather. That's why everybody lives out there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. From the very top of California to the bottom, you can wear a hoodie at nighttime. It's comfortable. It's not hot all the time. You get on the other side of the mountains, it's miserable, but that side of the mountains to the Pacific is an amazing place.
And I got to tell you guys, y'all have a lot of like really cool logos. The one that you have on right now, and we've got the sign behind us. That I love that.
That's your favorite one?
That's my favorite one of all of them.
I like the one behind me.
I think Jimbo had a hand in the saddle up for duck season with Bush Light. I like the one that you got on.
So this is one of the original ones. And when our current CEO, Adam Putnam, came to work, he wanted to put something on a hat that he could give to people where, he said, all right, I got that hat from Adam Putnam. And so he had some of these patches made up and put on some hats, and it was just revolutionized this logo. And so now, it's on, Filson products, and we're putting it on stuff. And, I get this. Actually, I had this is, we had this put on it. I think this is the only color that has this patch on it. And so guys are trying to grab it and pull it off of me when I walk through the hallway here. But I've been to the gym a little bit. I can handle it.
Right. Yeah. No, but that's my favorite one. So kudos to him for bringing it back, because it's snazzy looking. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, David, what else we got? Anything else?
I think that's it. I'm going to get back to work. Perfect. And go save some more ducks so we have more over our blocks next fall.
Perfect. Well, we'll be looking for that information next week about what's going on in the Prairie Pothole with Ducks Unlimited. That'll be fun to see, and I'm assuming it's going to be everywhere. All social media accounts will tell us what project you were teasing us with a couple minutes ago.
Absolutely. Oh, it'll be a huge announcement when it comes out.
Awesome.
If anything we can do, please let us know. I look forward to seeing you guys. I'll see you November 17th. Dinner's at 6:00. Don't be late for dinner. We'll see you that afternoon.
We'll talk to you before into the vault.
Sounds good.
Go save the ducks, David.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
David Schuessler and Mike Brasher.
from Ducks Unlimited. Great people, good folks. Look forward to seeing them here in mid-November on that Boss Steel Reserve hunt. Come out, y'all. November 18th, 19th, and 20th. I still have some dates available. Can work people in on that hunt. 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and I had one weekend in November that just came open. So if you've got a private group, 8 people, I got a weekend in November. Excellent hunting. Holler at us, StanfieldHunting.com. Thank you very much. Also, I'd like to thank our newest sponsor, which is Mitch Hall Chevrolet out of Haskell, Texas. It's where I buy all my vehicles. I'm a Chevy man. They can take care of you on everything you need. That's Mitch Hall Chevrolet in Haskell, Texas. Thank you very much. God bless. Peace. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Watch for deer. Check out all of our amazing sponsors and get involved in Ducks Unlimited if there's any way possible. They put on amazing events. Check out MLR Graphics, Mallard Bay, Hemp Hill Farm. Use our promo code BHP25. Pacific Calls, BHP25, Boss Shot Shells, Dirty Duck Coffee, Dive Bomb Industries, Looking Glass Podcast, Shin Gear, Ducks Unlimited, Lucky Duck, Mossberg, Double T British Kennels, Alpha Outdoor Specialties, and Stanfield Outfitters.